The rumbling sound of laughter filled the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. Seated at the circular table were representatives from 17 different species, all looking down at the human delegation, with expressions ranging from amusement to outright pity. Admiral John Baker stood firm, his weathered face betraying no emotion as the alien diplomats continued their mockery. Behind him, Captain Alex Morgan and Dr. Olivia Hayes exchanged glances, their months of preparation for this moment now seeming futile. "You expect us to believe," the Xyrelian ambassador Grath said, his blue-scaled face contorted in what passed for a smile among his kind, "that your species, barely spacefaring for a century, has mastered dimensional manipulation, the same technology that has eluded the Xyrelian Empire for millennia." Another wave of laughter washed over the chamber. "We're not claiming mastery," Admiral Baker replied calmly. "We're announcing a breakthrough and requesting safe passage for our test vessel." The Varaxian delegate, a being of shifting smoke contained within a hovering mechanical sphere, pulsed with purple light. "Humans still struggle with basic warp technology. Your fastest ships take weeks to cross distances our children's toys manage in hours." Captain Morgan stepped forward despite protocol. At 38, he was considered young for his position, but his record during a Mars crisis had earned him command of Earth's most ambitious project. "With respect," he said, his voice steady, "we're not discussing conventional propulsion. The Pathfinder operates on different principles altogether." Dr. Hayes moved to his side, her data pad displaying complex equations. "Our research into the seventh dimension has revealed—" "The seventh dimension," interrupted the Corlean representative, "an ancient species resembling mantises with crystalline exoskeletons. Humans can barely comprehend five-dimensional mathematics. This is absurd." The council chamber erupted in renewed laughter. Back on Earth, in the underground facility beneath the Nevada desert, Chief Engineer Ryan Daniels watched the transmission with growing frustration. Around him, the Pathfinder waited in its massive hangar, its unusual hull configuration defying conventional spacecraft design. "They're not even giving us a chance," Lieutenant Samantha West said, standing beside the main control console. Her expertise in quantum navigation had been crucial to the project's development. "Did we expect anything different?" Ryan replied, his hands running over the control panel. 4 years of work, and they dismiss it in minutes." At the council meeting, Dr. Hayes refused to back down. "Our theoretical framework has been verified through multiple small-scale tests. The Pathfinder merely represents the first full application." The Xyrelian ambassador leaned forward. "Even if your theories had merit, which they do not, accessing higher dimensions requires energy quantities your civilization cannot possibly generate." Admiral Baker smiled for the first time. "That's where you're wrong. We don't need to generate the energy. We simply need to channel what already exists between dimensional planes." A sudden silence fell over the chamber. Captain Morgan recognized the shift. For the first time, they had said something the council hadn't anticipated. The Corlean representative clicked its mandibles nervously. "Such methods were theorized by our ancestors, but deemed too unstable. The dimensional barriers exist for good reason. We've found ways to create controlled breaches," Dr. Hayes explained. "The Pathfinder will demonstrate this in 3 Earth days." The council erupted in objections, but the Xyrelian ambassador raised a hand for silence. His earlier amusement had vanished. "You will proceed without our blessing," he said coldly. "When your ship destroys itself, remember that we warned you of your arrogance." As the human delegation departed, Captain Morgan received a message from Earth Command. Council reaction as expected. Operation Breakthrough proceeds regardless. Return immediately for final preparations. The laughter still echoed in Morgan's ears as they boarded their shuttle. But soon, he thought, the laughter would stop. The Nevada desert shimmered under the July heat as military transports arrived at what appeared to be an ordinary research facility. Underground, however, stretched 27 levels of the most advanced laboratories on Earth. At the bottom level, in a hangar larger than 3 football fields, sat the Pathfinder. Unlike conventional spacecraft, the Pathfinder had no visible engines. Its hull was a strange geometric shape that seemed to change slightly depending on the viewing angle. Some engineers joked it hurt their eyes to look at it too long. Chief Engineer Ryan Daniels moved through the busy hangar, checking final systems. At 42, Ryan had abandoned a promising career at NASA to join this classified project. His unorthodox approaches to engineering problems had initially caused friction, but now were recognized as essential to their progress. "Power coupling tests are complete," he announced, approaching Captain Morgan, who had just arrived from the council meeting. "She's ready for dimensional transition." Morgan nodded, studying the vessel. The council laughed us out of the room. As expected, Ryan replied with a small smile. Their loss. Lieutenant Samantha West joined them, her tablet displaying final crew assignments. At 34, she was the youngest senior officer on the mission, but her understanding of 7-dimensional mathematics had made her irreplaceable. "I've completed the final safety simulations," she said, her expression serious. "We still have concerning fluctuations during the transition phase. There's a 22% chance of catastrophic failure." Morgan frowned. "That's higher than last week." "New variables," she explained. "The dimensional boundary appears less stable than our original calculations suggested." First Officer Nathan Wright approached, his tall frame casting a shadow in the hangar lights. Unlike the others, Nathan came from a military background, having served 15 years in the Space Force. "Those odds are better than humanity's first ventures into space," he said confidently. The Mercury and Apollo astronauts faced worse. Dr. Hayes, who had been examining the ship's unusual navigation system, joined the conversation. "This isn't just about mechanical failure, Nathan. We're talking about breaking fundamental laws of physics as we understand them." The group fell silent as Admiral Baker entered the hangar. His expression told them everything they needed to know. "The President has given final approval," he announced. "Launch window opens tomorrow at 600 hours. The team exchanged glances. After years of theoretical work and months of preparation, suddenly it felt too soon. "The Zarelians have positioned observation vessels near Jupiter," Baker continued. "They're expecting a spectacular failure. Pentagon intelligence suggests they've already prepared statements expressing regret over our loss." Morgan's jaw tightened. They'll be disappointed. Later that evening, the 6 core crew members gathered in the briefing room for final mission protocols. The wall screens displayed the complex equations that formed the theoretical framework of their journey. "Let me be clear," Dr. Hayes said, standing before the main display. "The 7th dimension isn't just another direction. It's fundamentally different from our normal experience of reality. Time, space, and causality operate under different rules there." Ryan pointed to a pulsing diagram. "Our conventional engines will get us to the transition point. Then the dimensional drive activates, creating a bubble of altered physics around the ship." "What happens if the bubble collapses while we're in transition?" Samantha asked. The room grew quiet. "Then we exist partially in multiple dimensions simultaneously," Dr. Hayes answered softly. "No physical body could survive that state." Nathan clapped his hands together, breaking the tension. "Which is why we won't let that happen." As the meeting concluded, Morgan noticed energy readings on the monitor fluctuating in patterns that weren't in any of their simulations. When he pointed them out, Ryan studied them with concern. "The ship is anticipating," he said, struggling to find the right words, "almost as if it's already connected to the higher dimension." "Is that possible?" Morgan asked. Ryan shook his head. "Not according to any physics I understand." Outside, the desert night was quiet. Above, stars twinkled innocently, giving no hint of the cosmic boundaries that would soon be challenged. The countdown echoed through the underground launch chamber as the Pathfinder systems hummed to life. Captain Morgan sat in the command chair, his hand steady despite the weight of the moment. Around him, the bridge crew worked with focused precision. "All systems nominal. Ryan reported from the engineering station. Dimensional core temperature stable at 97%. Conventional drives ready. First Officer Nathan confirmed, his fingers dancing across his control panel. Dr. Hayes monitored the dimensional sensors, her brow furrowed in concentration. Initial boundary scan complete. The transition point appears stable. The massive hangar ceiling began to retract, revealing a vertical tunnel stretching upward to the desert surface. Early morning sunlight filtered down, casting long shadows across the vessel's unusual hull. "Pathfinder, you are cleared for launch," came Admiral Baker's voice through the communication system. "Godspeed." Morgan took a deep breath. Initiate conventional launch sequence. The ship rose smoothly, electromagnetic fields guiding it up the launch tunnel. On the surface, disguised as a weather research facility, blast doors slid open to allow the vessel passage into the dawn sky. Achieving escape velocity, Nathan announced as Earth's atmosphere thinned around them, conventional engines performing at 100% efficiency. Morgan nodded. Communications status. Communications Officer Lisa Patel, a former linguistics professor whose work on translating multidimensional concepts had proven invaluable, checked her systems. "All channels clear. We're receiving transmissions from both Earth Command and interesting." "What is it?" Morgan asked. "We're picking up communications from 3 different alien vessels near Jupiter's orbit. They're observing us." Morgan smiled thinly. "Our audience has arrived. Let's give them a show." As the Pathfinder approached the calculated transition point beyond the moon's orbit, the crew felt the first signs that something extraordinary was happening. A subtle vibration passed through the ship, not physical but somehow perceptible to their consciousness. "Dimensional boundary approaching," Dr. Hayes announced, her voice tight with tension. "Core energy levels rising rapidly." Ryan frowned at his readings. "We're seeing unexpected power spikes. The dimensional drive is drawing more energy than predicted." "Can we compensate?" Morgan asked. "Already on it," Ryan replied, his fingers flying across controls. "We're routing power from secondary systems." Samantha's voice cut through the tension. "Captain, I'm detecting an anomaly directly ahead. It's not matching any of our predicted patterns for the dimensional boundary." On the main view screen, space itself seemed to ripple, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Colors began to appear that had no names in human language. "All crew, secure for dimensional transition," Morgan ordered. "This is what we came for." The moment of transition defied description. Every crew member later would struggle to explain what they experienced. Reality seemed to fold around them, consciousness expanding to perceive dimensions that human minds were never designed to comprehend. For a heartbeat that seemed to last forever, they existed in multiple states simultaneously. They could see the past and future of the ship as probability clouds. They perceived their own bodies as complex patterns of energy rather than solid matter. Through this impossible perception, Lisa suddenly stiffened at her station. "Captain, I'm detecting something else in the dimensional shift with us." Morgan tried to focus his fragmented awareness. "Hostile." "Unknown," Lisa replied, "but massive. Structured, definitely artificial." As the transition stabilized, their normal perceptions gradually returned. The view screen showed unfamiliar stars against the void. "We've emerged in. This can't be right," Nathan said, checking their position. "We're over 2 million light-years from Earth, near Andromeda." Before Morgan could respond, alarm signals blared across the bridge. "Multiple vessels approaching," Samantha called out. "Configuration matches Krylov battle cruisers." Dr. Hayes looked up from her readings, face pale. The dimensional transition created an energy signature orders of magnitude larger than we anticipated. We lit up the entire galactic neighborhood like a beacon. "Incoming transmission," Lisa announced. "They're demanding our immediate surrender." Morgan gripped his chair arms. The test flight had just become something far more dangerous, and somewhere in the back of his mind, He wondered if the aliens were still laughing. The Pathfinder hung in space, surrounded by the imposing silhouettes of 7 Krylov battle cruisers. Each alien vessel dwarfed the human ship, their crystalline hulls reflecting starlight in mesmerizing patterns. Weapon ports glowed with contained energy, all aimed at the Earth vessel. Tactical assessment, Captain Morgan asked, his voice calm despite the situation. Security Chief Eric Martinez studied his displays. At 41, Eric had served in Earth's Space Defense Forces during the Proxima Centauri incident. His experience with alien encounters, limited as it was, made him the most qualified person for this moment. Their weapons systems are unlike anything in our database, he reported, but the energy signatures suggest destructive capability at least 30 times greater than our most powerful weapons. Lisa Patel worked to establish proper communication channels. I've translated their demand. They're ordering us to power down all systems and prepare for boarding. They're calling us intruders and dimensional criminals. Dimensional criminals, Nathan repeated. That's a new one. Dr. Hayes looked up from her station. The dimensional transition must have violated some kind of territorial boundary we weren't aware of. Morgan nodded. Lisa, open a channel. The main view screen flickered to show a Krylov commander. The alien had a vaguely insectoid appearance, with compound eyes that reflected the bridge crew's images back at them. This is Captain Alex Morgan of the Earth vessel Pathfinder, Morgan began. We apologize for our unexpected arrival. We're on a peaceful mission of scientific exploration. The Krylov commander's mandibles clicked in what the translation software interpreted as derision. Your primitive vessel has violated sacred dimensional boundaries. The penalty is immediate seizure and crew detention. Admiral Gregory Coleman, who had insisted on joining the mission despite his 60 years of age, stepped forward. His diplomatic experience might be their only advantage. Commander, he addressed the alien, we're newcomers to dimensional travel. We weren't aware of any regulations governing these transitions. We request leniency and information exchange instead of confrontation. The alien's compound eyes seemed to pulse. Ignorance does not excuse trespassing. Your technology is clearly stolen. No emerging species could develop dimensional manipulation independently. I assure you, Dr. Hayes interjected, our technology is entirely of human origin. The Krylov made a sound that needed no translation to be recognized as disbelief. Your vessel will be impounded for study. Your crew will be detained for questioning. Resistance will result in your destruction. The communication ended abruptly. Options? Morgan asked, looking around the bridge. Eric consulted his tactical display. Conventional weapons would be useless against their shields. We could attempt to outrun them, but their propulsion capabilities appear superior. What about another dimensional jump? Nathan suggested. Ryan shook his head. The core needs at least 6 hours to recharge for another transition. We have nowhere near enough power. Morgan turned to Dr. Hayes. What about a partial activation? Not a full jump, but enough to demonstrate our capabilities. She considered this for a moment. Theoretically possible, but extremely risky. We could end up partially phased between dimensions. Which would do what exactly? Morgan pressed. Best case, make us temporarily intangible to their weapons. Worst case, scatter our atomic structure across multiple dimensional planes. The ship shuddered as a tractor beam locked onto their hull. They're pulling us toward the largest vessel, Samantha reported. Morgan made his decision. Dr. Hayes, prepare for a partial dimensional activation. Ryan, divert all non-essential power to the dimensional core. Eric, ready what defensive capabilities we have, just in case. Captain, Lisa called out, I'm receiving new transmissions. More ships are arriving. The view screen showed a dozen new vessels materializing from hyperspace. Their design was different, sleeker, with blue energy patterns flowing across golden hulls. Galactic Council security forces, Admiral Coleman identified them. We've jumped right into the middle of disputed space. A new transmission came through. This one from a stern humanoid figure with silvery skin. Attention unknown vessel. This is High Commander Vex of the Galactic Security Fleet. You have entered a restricted diplomatic zone with unauthorized dimensional technology. Surrender or be destroyed. Morgan exchanged glances with his crew. The situation had just gone from bad to worse. It seems the entire galaxy has an opinion about our ship, he said grimly. Time to show them what it can really do. The bridge of the Pathfinder hummed with nervous energy as Dr. Hayes worked frantically at the dimensional core controls. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she input complex calculations, occasionally glancing at the view screen where both Kryloth and Galactic Council vessels were closing in. How much longer? Morgan asked, tension evident in his voice. 2 minutes, she replied without looking up. I need to precisely calibrate the dimensional resonance, or we'll either do nothing impressive or tear ourselves apart. Ryan Daniels joined her, his hands flying over a separate console. I'm rerouting emergency power reserves. We'll have one shot at this. Outside, the alien vessels had begun arguing among themselves. The Kryloth claimed priority in capturing the human ship, while the Council forces insisted on their jurisdictional authority. Their disagreement bought precious seconds. They're powering weapons, Eric announced, his tactical display flashing with warning indicators. Both fleets. Admiral Coleman watched grimly. They'd rather destroy us than let the other side claim our technology. 30 seconds, Dr. Hayes called out. The first shots were fired, not at the Pathfinder, but between the alien fleets. Energy beams of various colors sliced through space, creating a chaotic light show around the human vessel. Some of those weapons are going to hit us by accident, if nothing else, Nathan observed, gripping his console as the ship rocked from a near miss. 10 seconds, Dr. Hayes announced. Morgan opened the ship-wide communication channel. All crew, brace for dimensional core activation. Effects unknown. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Initiating. The dimensional core activated with a sound like reality itself being torn apart. A wave of energy unlike anything conventional physics could describe surged through the ship. For a moment, every crew member experienced the strange sensation of existing in multiple places simultaneously. On the hull, something extraordinary happened. The metal began to shimmer, becoming partially transparent. Ripples of energy in impossible colors flowed across the surface like water. Then, extending from various points on the ship, tendril-like projections of pure dimensional energy began to form. What's happening? Morgan demanded, staring at the tendrils visible on the external cameras. Dr. Hayes looked up from her console, her eyes wide. The core isn't just activating. It's communicating with the higher dimensions. Those energy patterns are. I think they're manifestations of seventh-dimensional space interacting with our reality. A Kryloth energy weapon struck the Pathfinder directly and passed right through, causing no damage. We're partially phased, Ryan exclaimed, just enough to be intangible to conventional weapons. The alien fleets stopped firing, their sensors focused on the human vessel that was now defying known physics. The tendrils of dimensional energy grew longer, moving with apparent purpose. On the main view screen, both alien commanders appeared in split screen, their expressions showing something humans had never seen before: alien shock. What manner of technology is this? Demanded the Galactic Council commander. Lisa, monitoring the communications, suddenly straightened. Captain, I'm receiving thousands of transmission requests from throughout this sector. Word is spreading. One of the energy tendrils reached out toward a nearby Kryloth vessel. Where it touched the alien ship, strange effects began to manifest. Time itself seemed to slow around the contact point. The tendril is creating the localized time dilation field, Samantha reported in astonishment. That section of their ship is experiencing time at 1,000th our rate. Can we control these manifestations? Morgan asked. Dr. Hayes shook her head. I don't think they're fully subject to our control. The seventh dimension operates under different causal rules. These energy patterns seem to have a form of, I hesitate to use the word, but almost a consciousness of their own. Admiral Coleman moved to Morgan's side. "We've just demonstrated power beyond anything these species have seen. We need to use this moment carefully." Morgan nodded and turned to Lisa. "Open a channel to both commanders." When the connection was established, Morgan stood tall. "This is just a fraction of our capabilities. We came in peace, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. I suggest we begin diplomatic discussions immediately." The silence that followed was profound. The laughter that had followed humanity throughout the galaxy had finally stopped. The dimensional tendrils extending from the Pathfinder swayed gently in space, defying conventional physics. Captain Morgan watched as one tendril wrapped around a Krylov cruiser, freezing it in what Dr. Hayes described as a temporal bubble. The massive alien vessel hung motionless, its weapon systems powered mid-firing sequence, crew suspended in a moment of time. "Can we undo that?" Morgan asked, nodding toward the frozen ship. Dr. Hayes studied her readings with a mixture of awe and concern. "I think so. But I'm still trying to understand how we did it in the first place." Ryan's voice came through the intercom from the engine room, where he had gone to manually stabilize the dimensional core. "Captain, we've got problems. The core temperature is rising beyond safety parameters. These manifestations are drawing enormous power. How long can we maintain this state?" Morgan asked. 20 minutes at most," Ryan replied. "After that, either the core burns out or we risk permanent dimensional displacement." On the view screen, the Galactic Council commander looked shaken. "Your ship possesses capabilities that violate multiple interstellar treaties. You will power down immediately or—" Morgan cut him off. "Your weapons can't touch us, Commander. And as you can see, we can affect your vessels in ways you clearly don't understand. I suggest you reconsider your approach." Lieutenant Samantha West suddenly called out from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting a massive energy surge at the edge of the system. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel." The view screen shifted to show an armada of vessels emerging into normal space. Their design was unmistakable. The distinctive curved hulls and biomechanical aesthetics of Zarelian warships. At the center of the formation was a vessel 5 times larger than any other. "The Zarelian Grand Fleet," Admiral Coleman whispered. "They must have followed our dimensional signature." A new communication channel opened automatically. The face that appeared belonged to a Zarelian admiral, her scales a deep purple denoting high rank. "I am Supreme Commander Karen Foster of the Earth Defense Force," she announced, the translation software giving her words a formal cadence. Morgan and the crew exchanged confused glances. Earth had no such fleet or commander. "Supreme Commander." The Zarelian responded, clearly surprised. "The Galactic database contains no record of human military presence beyond your solar system." Karen Foster's expression remained impassive. That was by design. The Pathfinder's mission was to reveal only a fraction of our capabilities while we positioned our main fleet. Morgan realized someone on Earth had intercepted their transmissions and was now attempting to bluff on their behalf. He decided to play along. "The demonstration phase is complete, Commander," he said to Karen. "The Pathfinder has successfully tested the dimensional defense systems." The dimensional tendrils around the ship pulsed brighter, as if responding to his words. Another tendril formed spontaneously, reaching out toward a council vessel and causing its shields to flicker and fail. "Captain," Dr. Hayes said urgently, keeping her voice low, "the core is becoming increasingly unstable. These manifestations are growing stronger but more unpredictable." Ryan's voice came through again. "Whatever you're planning, do it fast. The power fluctuations are approaching critical levels." On the view screen, the Zarelian commander was engaged in heated discussion with both the Krylov and Council representatives. Karen Foster's image occasionally interjected with vague but ominous references to humanity's dimensional fleet and seventh-dimensional weaponry. Meanwhile, Samantha worked furiously at her station. "I've analyzed the tendril patterns. There's a mathematical consistency to their movements, If Dr. Hayes can adjust the core's resonance frequency, we might establish limited control. Dr. Hayes immediately began the adjustments. It's worth trying, but she never finished her sentence. A massive energy surge shot through the ship, causing consoles to spark and emergency lights to activate. The dimensional tendrils suddenly doubled in size and number. What happened? Morgan demanded. The core just jumped to a new energy state, Ryan reported, his voice tight with tension. It's drawing power from somewhere else now, not our systems. The Pathfinder hovered in space, dimensional tendrils slowly retracting as Dr. Hayes finally managed to stabilize the core. Around the human vessel, the combined fleet of 3 alien civilizations maintained a respectful distance, their weapons powered down. 2 days had passed since the confrontation, and the galaxy had changed forever. Captain Morgan stood in the newly established conference room aboard the massive Galactic Council diplomatic vessel. Beside him, Admiral Coleman and Dr. Hayes represented Earth in what was now being called the Dimensional Accords negotiation. The Council has officially recognized Earth as a Tier 1 civilization, announced the silver-skinned High Counselor, his tone formal but laced with lingering disbelief. All previous restrictions on human expansion and technological development are hereby rescinded. Morgan nodded, maintaining the calm demeanor that had served him well throughout this crisis. Earth appreciates this recognition, though we never acknowledged those restrictions in the first place. The Xyrelian ambassador, who had once laughed at humanity's claims, now sat stiffly at the far end of the table. We formally request an exchange of scientific delegations to better understand your dimensional technology. That will be considered, Admiral Coleman replied diplomatically. But first, we require guarantees of non-aggression toward human interests. Back on the Pathfinder, Ryan worked with Samantha to document everything about the ship's unexpected capabilities. The dimensional core had stabilized but remained changed by its brief connection to higher dimensional energy sources. It's like the ship evolved, Ryan explained to the engineering team. The core has reconfigured itself at the quantum level. We couldn't have designed this if we tried. Lisa Pottle entered the engine room, excitement visible on her face. You won't believe the transmissions I'm receiving. News of the Pathfinder has spread throughout the galaxy. Some species are calling it the Great Awakening, the moment when humanity revealed itself as a power beyond understanding. That's not exactly accurate, Ryan said with a slight smile. We barely understand what happened ourselves. In a private conversation room, Nathan and Eric reviewed security footage from the confrontation. We need to be realistic about this, Eric said soberly. We stumbled into power we don't fully comprehend. The galaxy now sees us as far more advanced than we actually are. Nathan nodded. A dangerous position. If they discover the truth, then we need to become what they think we are, Eric finished, and quickly. The diplomatic meeting concluded with the signing of preliminary agreements. As the Earth representatives prepared to return to the Pathfinder, a Krylov commander approached Morgan. Your vessel's dimensional signature has been detected by species beyond our region, she informed him, compound eyes reflecting the starlight. Many are concerned. They needn't be, Morgan replied, if they harbor no ill intentions toward Earth. Back on Earth, news of the Pathfinder's success had transformed humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. Construction had already begun on 5 new dimensional vessels. Scientists worldwide collaborated on understanding the principles that the Pathfinder had demonstrated. As the Pathfinder prepared for the journey home, the crew gathered on the bridge. The dimensional scars from their earlier transition had healed, creating a stable pathway that would allow them to return to Earth in a single jump. Begin pre-jump sequence, Morgan ordered, settling into his command chair. Dr. Hayes monitored the dimensional core, which pulsed with energy that seemed somehow alive. The core is responding more efficiently than before. It's almost as if it's eager to jump. Morgan looked around at his crew, seeing in their faces the weight of what they had accomplished and the responsibility they now carried. When we left Earth, we were explorers, he said quietly. "We return as ambassadors of a power that has changed the galaxy's balance forever." Samantha looked up from her station. "I've been thinking about what happens next. Every spacefaring civilization will be studying dimensional physics now, trying to catch up." "They won't," Ryan said with certainty. "Not for decades at least. Whatever happened to our ship out here created something unique." The Pathfinder's engines hummed as the dimensional drive engaged. Around them, space began to fold in impossible ways as the ship prepared to slip between the fabric of dimensions. "Take us home," Morgan ordered.